Our worksheets you probably saw as well, I can reorder them at any time. So I'm down the bottom of your screen there, and I'm just going to move one worksheet across to anywhere I like. So that's thinking about the structure of your Excel workbook there. What I'm going to use this morning then is a section of data, and we're thinking of how to enter data into a spreadsheet then. So if I just move across into that data page there, you'll see I have some sample data there, and it's just random pieces that I've entered just for this morning, so don't be searching too much for any meaning for it. How did it get there? To be perfectly honest with you, I just googled sample Excel data and pasted it in. For most users, you will type that in. So if I type some sample data below it there, once I enter any piece of information, I can hit enter to confirm. The tab key will move me across, but most commonly I'm now moving the arrow keys to navigate my spreadsheet. Just while I'm on that, if I come up to the top tab here, you'll see the data tab, and this is some sort of locations where data might be imported into a spreadsheet, and the only one I really want to take for you here is this get from text or CSV. A lot of people using Excel notice this file extension .csv and wonder what it is, so it's just going to signpost it for you. CSV stands for, you'll see there, comma separated variable, and it basically says that it arranges data to separate all these individual pieces of information just by a comma. The reason why it does that is we quite often we're using different versions of Microsoft Excel or even different spreadsheet packages, and CSV is a portable file format. It can move between all of those seamlessly. So if you see .csv, don't worry about it. It'll import perfectly into whatever spreadsheet package you're using. Nobody's trying to confuse you or anything. As I say, it's just so it can move seamlessly there. And if you have data stored somewhere else on your device, you'll see get data there, and that can import it in just to stop you having to do it from scratch. Most often, however, I'm just copying and pasting it in as I did with that one. So once the data has been inserted then, just before I start doing any formatting functions, you'll see I have things here like order date, and that is not fitting into my column. So I have two options to format a little bit better. I can drag out the size of any column to make it a bit bigger there, or if I didn't want to make that bigger, just put it back in. You'll see there order date at the top. I've selected the cell. I now have the wrap text option, and that'll just change the column heading a little bit as well for me. Just as I have resized that column, I could do the same thing here with rows. And indeed, if I take that wrap text off, if you just double click between any column, it'll automatically size it to your text as well there. Okay. Suppose I want to remove any piece of data there. I can highlight any row, right click on it, and in that right click menu I will see that I can also delete or indeed insert new columns or rows there as well. Okay, down the bottom of that menu you'll see hide and unhide. What that really refers to is sometimes you can have a huge spreadsheet with lots of data on it. It can become quite cumbersome to scroll through maybe 1,000 rows or 30 or 40 columns, so you can hide whole sections of the spreadsheet and then unhide them again. Just makes it a little bit easier to scroll through your spreadsheet then. Okay, the rest of the formatting should hopefully follow through logically from the likes of Microsoft Word if you use that. So if I take my column headings there, I can highlight them, make them bold, italics and underline, and quite common what I might do, for example, for headings, I'll make the text white but the background black. Okay, so that hopefully that should be pretty common to you from Word. And lastly, for formatting cells, if we look at the actual data that I'm concerned with here, we're saying maybe I think people are ordering, look like they're ordering office supplies there. This right hand column, unit cost, and units there are both at the moment just plain numbers, but unit cost is obviously a currency. So just to specify that data, I'm going to highlight all of those, and I now want to tell Excel that this is actually a currency or a money field. So what I can do is up the top there in my menu bar, I'm now going to format that field to currency, and you can see it's added in there the pound symbol for me. It also moved the alignment over to the left of the cell. Units here, if I highlight that column, It's general. That means that I could also add text into that field if I wanted. But if I want some form of validation, I could change and specify that that is actually a number cell. And you'll see it's put the decimal points in for me. I'm not sure if I formatted the top left one. Yeah, the date already there. When you do that, you can actually go into each of those and take more formats or change, for example, what format you want the date to. Most of that's dropping just between, for example, American format or European format. All right, so that's pretty much it for adding data and then formatting your cells. What I'm going to do now is move over to a different worksheet, and you should see in there, I'll take my original data. Okay, and I'm just going to do to get the raw data there. I'm going to take a worksheet, and I'm going to put it in now, the new worksheet there. What I want to do now is tell Excel that this is, rather than being just random pieces of data, they actually all relate to each other. Okay, that is one table. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to highlight all of my data in one go. And you'll see at the top menu there, I want to format it as a table. And it's given me a number of different nice formatting options there. I'm just going to take that one. My table does not have headers because I didn't highlight the column headers at the top there in row 1. If you had have done that, I'll actually do it for you just to show you. Highlight the whole one, and there we go. And I'll now say it does have headers. Click OK. And what you'll see there is that Excel has now realized that all of this data can be treated together as one piece of data there. What does that allow me to do? Well, you'll now see the filter options here. So I could, for example, say that I wanted to just see orders which apply to the central region. So I'm going to look at region there. I don't want all selected. I just want central selected. That runs a filter for me. And you can see now that only those people who have ordered in the central region are selected there. Okay, so filtering can be a really handy time-saving way of just selecting data out from a data sheet, particularly, as I say, if you have a huge cumbersome sheet. I know we're only dealing with a small amount of data there this morning. Okay, the next thing that it allows me to do as well is put some sort of formatting in to my data. So again, I'm going to come back to the first piece of data. What will I do before I move on? Sorry. Suppose I had their unit cost as well. I can also take the unit cost and filter that. But what we're going to do as well is now going to put some conditional formatting, as I say, into our data. So I'm just going to import it again for you. We'll start from scratch rather than confused from our table sorting. And I want to have my conditional formatting. We will use the unit cost there. So I'm going to highlight all of those unit costs. At the top, just beside format by table, you'll see conditional formatting. And for this particular one, I want to highlight cells which are greater than, and we'll say I'm looking for particularly expensive products, anything over 50. It's going to highlight that in the red fill for me, and there you go. It's highlighted for me the most expensive product, which is over 125. I'll do that again, and this time I'm going to see who has ordered a particularly low amount of units. So again, highlight the amount of units. I'm looking for my conditional formatting. When I use highlight cell rules, only this time I want to have people who have ordered less than, and we'll say less than, I'll change that to 20. Click OK. And again, you're just highlighting different parts of our data depending on the conditional formatting or the rules which we wanted in there. So what we've looked at so far is, first of all, telling Excel that that table is all to be treated as one piece of data. What that allows me to do is to, first of all, go back, we were able to filter by the region, or indeed any of our pieces of data, but we'll just use region as an example. Because it was all one section of data, Excel was also able to compare our unit costs and our units, and we applied some conditional formatting just to pick out certain pieces of data there. All right. Another handy thing we can do then, suppose I had this as a list of staff. I wanted that list of staff, however, it's just in a random format there. So what I'm going to do is I've taken surname, and up at the top right, you'll see I can sort that. And a real common one for the likes of surname is I'm going to sort it A to Z to give me my list alphabetic order there. Okay, so again, all of this is only possible because we have now treated that as one section of data. All right, what we're going to do now is do some processing of that data. So again, I'm going to lift the raw data that we started with off the data spreadsheet. I'm just copying that, and I'm going to paste it in there so that we can all see what we're looking at. So what sort of formula and what sort of processing might we do that might be relevant to our section of data here? Well, the first and most obvious ones is, if I looked at units and unit cost, I'm going to add a new column at the end, and I'm going to call it total cost. What would be the total cost of pencils for whoever Mr. or Mrs. Jones is there? It would be equal to the unit cost, or sorry, the number of units multiplied by the unit cost. For Excel then, what I want to appear in that cell, I want it to be equal to the unit cost, which is in E2. Excel's symbol for multiplying is the asterisk, so that's shift and 8. And I'm going to multiply the unit cost, the units by unit cost, so it's E2 multiplied by F2. I hit enter, and there you can see that's calculated for me. I can do exactly the same thing now in the next cell down. So again, equals the number of units multiplied by the unit cost, and hit enter, and so on right the way down. But as you can imagine, that's going to take me quite a long period of time to do that individually. So thankfully, I can just select one cell there. Using the bottom right of my cell, I can drag that formula down to make it repeat right throughout all my different cell entries. Excel knows exactly what I'm doing, so it repeats that formula down, what we call fill down. And if you don't like dragging the cell, up at the top right there in the menu bar, you can see I can use that to fill down also. So I've just copied that formula down and worked out all of the total costs there for each person. So next thing I might want to do is work out what is the total cost of all of these orders. Well, that would be all of these individual total costs all added together. How would I do that in Excel? So I'm going to put it just below here. I'll leave it. My formula for that would be equals, and what I could do now is say I want to add this cell, G2, then the plus symbol to G3, and so on right the way down to my total. Again, that's going to become a little bit cumbersome doing that out every time, a bit time consuming. So what I want to do instead is use a function. Because it's an adding function, I'm going to type in equals sum, which is my adding function. What do I want to add together? I'll then open a set of brackets, and I just need to drag all of the cells that I want to add together. And you'll see it creates that cell range from G2 to G20. I'll close my brackets and hit enter, and there is all the sum of all of those total costs. It's a pretty common function, as you can imagine, and therefore there's a number of different ways of doing it. Okay, so just to pick up then where we were, we wanted to we'd worked out the total cost of all those individual items, and we wanted to calculate down here the total cost of them all together. We did that using the equals sum function. And what I'm going to do now is, because it's so common, I can also highlight everything there that I want to add together, and up at the top right you'll see there the Autosum, and it does exactly the same thing for me too. So if I select that cell now, you'll see in that cell it's the sum that I have entered. So sum is our first what we call function of Excel. So rather than me adding manually my own formula, we're using functions, and as I said, that equals sum. Excel has over 500 different functions. I have no idea how many I have used, but I don't know anyone who's used all 500, but it gives you an idea of the complexity that exists within Excel, the number of different levels in which people can use it. And we're just going to look at some of those this morning then. And the first one, as I say, we've looked at already, which is the equals sum feature there. All right. Next one that I'm going to look at is we'll have here the units column, and you can see all of our different staff members have all ordered a huge different range of numbers of units. I want to work out, or it might be beneficial for me to work out the average number of units that people may have ordered there. So just below it, I'm going to type in equals to tell Excel that I'm adding a formula. And the formula that I've said that I want to use is average. So I'm just going to type that in. As I'm doing it, you'll see that Excel is suggesting a number of different formulas that it's guessing I might be about to use. And that'll give you an idea of the number that's contained. As well as that, I like to just type in, because I'm used to doing simple functions like average. But at the top menu bar here, you'll see this function of X or insert function option. All of the functions that I'm using, you'll see sums there and average. You can select them from here, and you can see just the range of usability of Excel functions there. Okay, so that lets you know where all of the Excel functions are, but the one I'm using now, as I say, is equals average. What is it that I want to calculate the average of? And how I'll tell Excel that is again is exactly the same as the sum function. I'm going to open a set of brackets and then just highlight the cells which I want the average of. You can see Excel has put that range in for me, E2 to E20. I'm going to close my brackets now and hit enter, and you can see there is the average calculated of all of those cells or that column. It's a little bit too cumbersome for me in that it's rounded to a number of different decimal places. So to make that a little bit shorter and concise, on the top menu bar in the middle here, you can see I can change the number of decimal places. So I want to decrease the number of decimal places in that cell. I'm just going to move it down. So instead it's 49.5. So it's just a little bit of formatting as well in there. So we've looked now at multiplication within Excel, because we multiplied the number of units by the unit cost to get our total cost. We then used the sum function to add all of those up. And we have also used here the average function as well. All right. What I'm going to do now, just purely for demonstration purposes again, is another couple of functions. I want to see who is the person who's ordered the most units. What have they, or how many, what was the most number of units ordered? Or I suppose what we'll actually do is make it a little bit more relevant. If I take the unit cost there, what is the most expensive item? So underneath there, I want to know what is the maximum value in that range. So it's equals max. I'm opening up my cell, my brackets there, and I now need to tell Excel of which range. So I'm just dragging that out again, closing my brackets, and you can see in there now 125 was the dearest unit cost, because I've used the equals max function. And you might have guessed exactly the same way. I can type in equals, and I want to know the minimum value, so it's equals min. Drag out my cell range where I want to find them, close my brackets again, and hit enter. Alright, I find, because they're simple functions, I'm just typing them in for you. If you actually use the function box there, and I'll see if I can find max, and click OK, tell Excel that's what you want to use, you'll see there it gives you a little prompt as to what values you want to put in there as well. So if you're using any function for the first time, maybe you might want to use that insert function dialog just for a little bit of help there as well. Okay, two different ways of doing the same thing. Don't for a minute think I'm recommending one above the other. Each user's totally different. All right, so we've already just looked at this small sample of data there, and we've multiplied, we've used the sum function, we've used the average function. We have also been able to use the maximum and minimum function. I'm going to go over here to look at now the surname column. Just another random function I'm going to put in there. I'm going to put the equals to tell Excel that I am using a formula. And I want Excel to count equals count if, and oh, let's see, range of cells that I want Excel to count. So which cells do I want Excel to count? I want to count the surnames. And what is the criteria that I want counted there? So I'm going to use a comma to separate that. And I want to know how many orders were made by someone called Jones. So I open up my quotation marks and type in Jones. And just before I hit enter, I'm going to go through that formula with you again. So what I've told Excel is equals just tells Excel I'm entering a formula. I want them to count if, and Excel is now asking me count what? Well, what am I going to count? I'm going to count everything in this cell range, C2 to C20, and count it if it's what? If the entry there is Jones. So hopefully you can break down that formula. The function is count if, followed by the range of cells, followed by the criteria in that cell. And I hit enter, and you can see there that Jones has been entered 6 times, so I know that the surname Jones has made 6 individual orders there. Again, this is just an example to show you that function. So hopefully you'll understand or maybe think of somewhere that might be a little bit more meaningful to you. Just again then, another couple of functions, just again random for this piece of data. Earlier on we worked out here the total cost. So what I'm going to say is now that everyone was working under a budget, and the budget I'm going to give this order was 5,000. I want now to work out the difference. So what is the difference between the budget and the total amount of money spent? So I'm going to say, well, it's equals to the budget, which is cell G24, minus the total number of amount of money spent, which we know was 7,509 because we calculated it earlier. I hit enter, and you see we're £2,509 over budget. I've only done that just to show you using the minus symbol. What we can also do now then is I want to know what is the budget status. Okay, and I'm going to put it here in the cell beside budget status there. So for that, what I want to appear in that cell, I'm going to use equals, again, just telling Excel that I'm entering a formula. And this time I'm going to use the if function. I'm going to open my brackets, and you'll see the first thing there is Excel prompted me is the logical test. Well, my logical test here is I want to know if my total cost, G21, is greater than, and I'm just using the greater than arrow there, my budget, which is in G24. So that is my logical test. I am testing if the total cost of everything spent is greater than the budget. I'm going to press the comma now, and you'll just see as I do that, Excel moves on here, its little prompts that it's given me. What is the value that I want to appear in that cell if that is true? Well, if the total cost that we had is greater than the budget, then we're over budget. Okay, so that's what I want to appear in the cell if we're over budget. I'll press the comma now, and you'll see Excel will move me on from my prompts here. What is the value that I want to appear in that cell if that's not the case? Well, that would mean we're fine, we are within budget. Close my quotation marks, and I'll close my brackets. So just so that you can see that formula again, if you look at the top toolbar, the function that we're using is equals if. The logical test, we're testing if G21 is greater than G24. That is the total cost greater than the budget. If that's true, we're over budget. If it's false, then we're within our budget. So I'm happy with that formula now, and I'm going to press the enter key, and you can see there that we are over budget because we know we already worked that out. Just to show you that changing, if I now look at the budget, which was 5,000, and change the budget to 10,000, can see my budget status will automatically change because we're now within budget again. All right. So especially just for anyone that joined us late there, what we've done so far is we just looked at sales rows and columns that make up a spreadsheet. So individual sales rows and columns. We then added some data. Where did we get it from? I copied and pasted that in. You could type it in, but we also looked there at the data tab and importing from CSV, which is a comma separated variable file, which we just said was portable between different Excel formats. Or if you have data somewhere else in your device, you can locate it from there and import it into Excel. Once we did that, we then said that we wanted to tell Excel that this was all one piece of data. It was all related to each other. So we selected in there and we said that we formatted it as a table. That allowed us to run certain filters. So we were able to filter, for example, to just look at orders from the central region, and that ran the filter for us. And what we also said we were able to do was to sort. So if I took something like surname, and what we could do is go up to the top right there, and you can see I could sort A to Z and put it in alphabetical order. So all of my surnames are now sorted into alphabetical order there. And we also did some conditional formatting. So just to run through that again, I could take anything like unit cost there, and I selected conditional formatting up the top. And what I wanted to do was to highlight sales which had a value greater than, and I'll just change that to 50 so you can see it changing. And there it highlights in red anything with a value over 50. So that was your conditional formatting, and you can see all the different rules in there. We then tried to look at some formula. Hopefully we've got a really messy spreadsheet now, because you'll see that we used multiplication to multiply our individual units by our unit cost to get a total cost. We then used the sum function to get 7,500 and 9 there just for a total sum. Over to the left there, we use the average function to work out the average number of units that equals average. We then used kindif to count the number of people with Jones as their surname there, how many orders did Jones make. And we then worked out a budget, or assigned a budget, sorry, and we then worked out the difference between those using what minus symbol function. And finally, we have there our if statement, which will tell us whether or not we are within budget. Okay, so next thing that we're going to do, moving on from all of those different formula, is create some charts. So the most obvious chart that I could see to create there might be that I want to create, for example, I want people's surnames in my chart, and I also want to plot them against, for example, the total cost of the order there. I'm just taking that at random. One problem I find with Excel is people always want to plot data which is beside each other because they're going to highlight them at once. So if deliberately taking stuff which is apart, I'm going to highlight the Jones surname there. I'm now holding down the control key of my keyboard, and that allows me to highlight data which isn't together. Okay, just in case you're copying and pasting between those. I want to plot those on a chart, so I'm going to go to the Insert tab at the top, and you'll see here a number of different charts in the center which I might add in there as well. I'm just going to go for this one, pick a simple line graph, just for our demonstration purposes. And you can see there, I've got a nice clean chart inserted for me. Now, I want to drag it out a little bit bigger. And you can see that it's pretty boring looking chart. So I obviously want to do some sort of formatting there to change my chart. Any of the different chart elements, I can click on the title. And I know that the title here is surname, and it's plotted against total cost. Changing the title there as well. But once I've done that, I can also format any of that using our Microsoft Word tools. But possibly the best bit in there, you'll see the plus symbol here. And I can choose what elements I want added to the chart and taken out. So if, for example, I might want to put my data labels in, it'll actually give me the individual markers as well. The axis titles and so forth. You can choose those for yourself for any individual chart that you add. And as well as that, I can change the style of the chart just to have some a little bit more impressive. Don't worry if you're trying to embed this chart into a pre-written report, because all of those individual elements, you can still double click on them and format them in whatever way you want there. Okay, just to repeat that then, if I do take some data that's beside each other, I'm now going again to insert another chart. I'll take a pie chart this time just for something different. And you can see there I'm getting exactly the same effect each time. All of my different components of that chart, I can format whatever way I like. You can see the labels up the top there just to change the appearance and so forth, depending on your own data. But that's one of the big, for me, selling points of Excel, the ability to plot those charts really quickly and embed them into your report. Just because it's such a common function then, what I'm going to do is pretend that I do have a report that I want to embed it into. So I'm going to open up Microsoft Word then. I'll open up a new blank document. And I'm going to now right click and I want to copy that report. So I'm copying it from Excel, open up Word, and I want to paste it in there. You'll see I have a number of different paste options. And the only thing I'm going to demonstrate this is this one allows me to use the destination theme. That's just copying the chart as it is. But the key thing for me here is this link data option. I'll show you what that does now. Because I have linked the data there, that chart is what we call embedded, and it still takes the source data from my spreadsheet. So if subsequently I go back to my spreadsheet here, and I'm just going to do something to make it obvious. If I change that total cost for the Jones there, I'll put it up to 5,000, just something. You'll see this huge change in the graph. I'm going to go back into Word. It is also changed in Word as well. I just know that's handy for if you're putting together some form of portfolio and a bit of data changes. You don't have to go right the way through and changing all the different elements there as well. So that's how I was linking data between Microsoft Word and Excel. And that goes back to one of the big advantages of using the Microsoft apps, that idea that they can all essentially speak to each other. Okay, so we have looked at the structure of the spreadsheet, creating the formatting of all of the data in the spreadsheet, looking at tables, sorting and filtering tables. We've put in some conditional format. We have now used all of our formula functions, and we've created some charts. Suppose I'm saying now that I'm pretty much finished with the spreadsheet. I'm happy enough with how it's working there. Okay. One of the big selling points as well of Excel is the notion that we can collaborate and work together with it. So suppose I want to share this Excel document with other people, maybe a group of students or a group of staff are working together with something. Previously, how we would have done that would have been to email it. So you might have opened up Outlook and attached this file and sent it via email. There's a problem there, and we've already kind of stumbled across it, which is what if I change the Excel file? I then need to email again the updated Excel file. So what we're going to do this time, if you look at the top right of your Excel document, I'm going to click and share. I'll just share this Excel document with myself rather than clutter up anyone's inbox. So I'm just going to put my own email address in there, and I can click and send. You'll see there it's sent a link to this document, and hopefully that'll arrive pretty quick then. I'll be able to show you how it looks for the recipient then. But what that means is instead of, yeah, it's there now. So that's how the recipient views that. So the big selling point with that is, should I change anything on my Excel document, that user just needs to follow this link and they will arrive at the Excel document itself, because it's stored within my OneDrive. So if I change it, I don't need to send that updated document around to anybody. They'll be able to come and look at that document as it currently exists. So just what a big selling point of using the Microsoft 365 apps there. Suppose you have made changes and you want to keep people up to date of what has changed, thinking particularly of group projects and so forth. You'll see here the comments tab. So what I can use here in the comments tab is add some new comments telling people that I've made some changes. So if I just add in there, we add graphs. And then anyone who I have collaborated with will see those. If I want to specifically bring someone's attention to it, I can also say I'll mention Laura specifically. So apologies, Laura, but you're getting a pop-up now probably in your screen letting you know that you get access to a file and ask you to use the formulas there. Again, the reason I show you that is I know one of the most common uses of Excel is for people collaborating on project work, and it's one of the big selling points of using Microsoft 365 apps, that ease of collaboration there, and hopefully limiting some duplication of work for you. Okay, so the other thing I would say is there are differences between Microsoft Excel, the desktop app, and the online application. You have seen there that I am using the desktop app. Remember back to the very start, that's how I opened the desktop app. So if I just search for Excel, I can open the desktop app from here, and it gives me the full functionality of Microsoft Excel. However, if you are using another device, or indeed any device anywhere in the world with internet access, I can open up here Google Chrome, and I can access what we call Excel Online. So I would just go to the Office homepage, just office.com, log in with your own university credentials, and you'll see here I can open an Excel workbook online. I could be doing this on an iPad, on a device anywhere in the world. Don't need to have the Excel desktop app installed, and I just open a new blank Excel workbook there. So you'll see straight away it's kind of like that Excel or Excel Lite. Look at the toolbar at the top. It doesn't have the full functionality of all Excel functions. Remember I said there was well over 500. You might have difficulty embedding certain objects or running macros if you're an advanced Excel user, but it does allow you to use Excel on the go if you want to make any short changes or minor edits. I'll just go back to the desktop app, and you can see just that slight difference in functionality across the toolbar there. So it's just in case you're aware, if you're looking for functions that aren't there, maybe you're using a different the desktop app as opposed to the online version. While I'm doing that, Microsoft have kindly given you a list of different the differences between the versions. So I've just put that into the chat for you so you can check out what functionality is available in the desktop app and what functionality is available online. As well as that, there is Microsoft's online support. So I'm just putting that into the chat for you too. Microsoft Online Support offers both video training and what we would call a little quick start guides. So I'll bring those up for you now. I'll put the link in there. And what you'll see there is that's Microsoft's online help and learning. And as well as that, you have there some video training, which the thing I prefer about that is it's divided into short functions as well. I don't know if you are a user of LinkedIn Learning, but all staff and students in the university have access to LinkedIn Learning via the portal. And I'm putting into the chat now as well a LinkedIn Learning link for you there. And you can just see for LinkedIn Learning, they've divided up Excel into a number of different chapters here down the left. Personally speaking, I'm not sure how long that course is. It's probably over 2 hours, I would imagine. So I know people aren't inclined to go and sit and watch 2 hours of videos. What I would say is you can go in and pick out the various topics from the chapters there. Okay, so we're down to about 10 minutes left. I know some people joined late, so just to run through our bullet pointed list, which I put up for you at the start again. I'll come back to that. I'll drag it in for you. That's what I had said we would go through this morning. If you want to check over that list, hopefully we've run through everything for it. And Laura will go back into the chat and see if there's anything there we need to cover again or any questions.
Okay, brilliant. I know I've definitely learned a lot there this morning, Chris. It's brilliant just to be able to get some good tips on how to use some of the even the short versions of how to do some of those formulas as well. So Let me just go back into this chat box. We just had one question, and it was really around the recording of the session. So just for everybody who maybe hasn't seen that in the chat box, especially for those people who did join us late, and apologies for that, we will have this recording downloaded and it will be put onto the Careers at Ulster YouTube channel. So you'll notice there in the chat box, I've given a link. It's just before all of Chris's links. So that's how you'll be able to access the recording, and hopefully that'll be up, either by the end of today or tomorrow. Okay, so for anybody who needs to, maybe go over what was covered at the beginning, or maybe just wants to go back and listen to it at another stage, the resources will be there for you. And just as another part of that question, we were asked, is there a contact where they could ask particular questions about converting specific data into reports or graphics? Do you think, Chris, would some of those support materials that you've put in, would that be the best starting point for that?
I'm not 100% sure just what they want the data converted into, but if it's, for example, if we go back into Excel there, if you want to convert to charts, you do have, let's just went through this chart wizard as well. I'm guessing, and again, I don't know this, but I just like infographics are a real common tool now as well that people are trying to create. You can absolutely use the charts function there within Excel to create infographics, but it is something which I do myself for a lot of reporting in the university. Again, this is purely personal preference. There's absolutely mountains of online tools for creating infographics. One that I use, for example, is Visme. I'll just type that into your chat as well. And these are all free. You can register there, and they have some graphical tools in there as well. If anyone's really looking to show off, you do have a Microsoft option called Power BI, which will create dashboards and let you know how different pieces of data have been analysed. I suspect if it's students, you'll probably be happy between the infographics and something like Visme or the charts there in Excel. And again, all that's included in all those Microsoft and LinkedIn Learn options in there as well.
Okay, that's great. And then we've just been asked, would you be able to go over the count if and the logical test again? Just one of the people who are with us aren't sure about the use of the commas and the speech marks in those.
So basically what we're saying is, I took this column and I want to know which of my employees or whatever this is making most orders. So what I'm saying is, I want to count how many times the surname is repeated there. And the example we used was Jones. That would be handy for me just running through counting the number of Joneses, but if you can imagine a huge spreadsheet with a lot of different entries in there, what I want to do is have Excel count that for me. So equals is how I tell Excel that I am entering a formula into a cell as opposed to just typing into it. Excel now wants to know which formula it is I'm using, and this one is kindif. So I'm just typing in kindif. Okay. It's now got the formula Excel, it knows I'm counting if something. So now I need to give it my criteria. I do that by opening a set of brackets, and you'll see there, it's hinting me or giving me a little prop, which range of cells is it that you want me to count? And I just highlight all of those cells. I'm now ready to move on to the next bit, which is criteria. And you'll see there how I do it is by using the comma symbol. So put the comma in there. So I've told Excel I want to count if, I've told it where it's counting, what is the criteria it wants me to count, and it goes in quotation marks. So I want to count how many times Jones has been entered there. That's me finished. So to let Excel know that I'm finished with my formula, I just close those brackets again. So I'm saying equals means I'm entering a formula. Countif is the formula that I'm using. I want you to count that range of cells, look in that range of cells, and count every time you find the name Jones mentioned. I hit enter, and there it's been mentioned, as I say, 6 times. Just as an aside to that as well, what I could also do, if I highlight those cells now, you'll see the insert function, FX symbol there as well. Absolutely, loads of people still use that as well. So you'll see all those functions. Can't really count it, count. And you can see it's giving me those little hints. It's entirely personal preference. I've just used Excel that much that I kind of find it quicker and easier to type the formula in. But if you want to use that insert function there, it'll give you a little, give you that dialog box there as well. There's two different ways, kind of two different roads to get to the same place.
That's great. And could you maybe just, yeah, I think that actually that's it. Yeah, it was the kindif and the logical test. Okay, so that's great. Does anybody else have any questions? Would you like to pop them in the chat box? We'll have 5 more minutes. Seems quite quiet. Okay, hopefully that is a good sign.
So.
All good, great. What I'll maybe do, I'll maybe stop the recording, okay, and then maybe if other people feel that they want to ask questions, they can do that. So I'll just stop the recording. All right. So Chris had said earlier on, if anybody wants to be brave and even stick your microphone on and ask them a question, you can certainly do that now and just be confident that it's not going to be shared on YouTube or anything like that. There's just lots of thank yous here, Chris, in the chat box. I'm sure you can see that. What I'll maybe do, just to bring us to the end of the session, if there are no questions, just going to bring you back into my own PowerPoint, and just bringing just to your attention again that it is a week of events that are running this week. Today's session, if you are interested in doing a wee bit more about improving some of your digital skills, we do have further sessions today. So we have a Word session, and then we have a PowerPoint session later on as well. And then we also have starting out on LinkedIn. And then tomorrow, we also then have, oh, apologies, my slide. We also have then another bit about LinkedIn. We have social media, creating content, and we also have further Microsoft Excel training at a wee bit more of an intermediate level. Okay, so over the next today and tomorrow, we do focus specifically on digital skills. So if you do want to enhance any of those skills further, please feel free to join any of those talks, all right? But if there are no more questions, what I'll say is that we'll bring today's session to an end. And I want to say a big thank you to Chris for taking the time this morning to join us to do that. And I do want to also apologise to those who find some issues in getting in with this first thing. But as I say, you can access the recording once we get it downloaded. It will be there on the YouTube channel, and you should also be able to access it directly through the Future Skills Week website. Okay. Sorry, there's just a wee thing there. How do we get onto them via Blackboard? Can I just ask you to clarify? Get on to what? Sorry, Lauren. Seeing if there's any clarification. Going to come back on that wee question.
If you have a Blackboard area, Laura, I don't know if you, but you could take the meeting recording here.
Okay.
Upload that to your Blackboard area or import it through Canop.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, no. So Lauren's saying there that some of the events this week are actually running through. So it's Blackboard Collaborate. So all of those sessions, all of the recordings again will go on to the YouTube channel as well. So if you'd attended any yesterday that perhaps were through Blackboard, the recordings will go on to the YouTube channel. Okay. How do we show that we've attended live talks to gain your Edge Award? So if you go to the Future Skills Week website, for anybody who does want to get Edge accreditation for this week, there'll be a link to a form that you need to fill out for that, okay? And you can see Shauna has just put in the link there for me. Thanks very much, Shauna, that's great. Okay. Is there anything else? Okay, and I'm just going to type my email address just into the chat box as well. So if anybody needs to connect with me outside of today's session, just to ask any questions, maybe about Edge or about any of the sessions running this week, you can certainly do that. Okay. So say we'll leave it there. And again, thank you very much, Chris, and thanks to everybody for joining us today. All right. So we'll leave it there.
Bye now.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.